Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the show. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about all things related to self-care. So self-care is definitely, it can be a buzzword in society. It can be kind of a thing. I think it sometimes gets so overused that sometimes to some people it doesn't have any meaning. Some people associate it with certain things. So I want to talk about just kind of some common social ideas about what self-care is, and talking a little bit about more of how I understand self-care. So I think one of the common ideas around self-care, when I talk to a lot of different people, when I see a lot of things on social media and out there, people asking questions, what is self-care? And I actually just did a poll of people in my community about, what they see self-care as. For a lot of people, we see self-care as things like going to someone and getting a particular service. So going for a massage, going for a pedicure, going for kind of pampering, especially, to women. That tends to be one of the things that we see self-care as, getting a facial. And yes, those things definitely can be self-care, but those aren't the only things that self-care really is. Those are wonderful ways that we can take care of our bodies and, relax our systems. But a lot of times I think because of that conception that self-care is, going someplace and paying for some sort of a service, a lot of people think, well, I don't have the time for that. I don't have the money for that. And so they just write self-care off completely. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this episode, is to just talk about, to me, what self-care is. And I've again been doing this survey of people. It's really interesting to read different responses of what self-care means to people. So I'm seeing a broad range of responses, some, again, it's going for a pedicure, going out to lunch with girlfriends. And some people, it's more about, getting quiet and listening to what their body is requesting from them, or it's about prioritizing themselves first over other people in their life, which can be a very hard thing to do, especially for many women. So that was one of the questions I've been asking. And the other is, how easy is it for you to prioritize that? And one of the themes I'm seeing in these surveys is that it really is a challenge for many women, especially if they have children, they have a family. I'm seeing the theme of responses of, it's hard for me to do that because I'm always prioritizing everyone else's needs first. So yes, that can definitely be a challenge, but I think one of the things I want to make sure we talk about in this episode is about our mindset around what self-care is and why it's really important. So coming up against these ideas of, I don't have time for self-care, it's expensive because I have to go get a massage or do something like that. So I'm just going to share a little bit for me what self-care means. To me, self-care is anything that I do that is really dedicated and focused on supporting my body, my mind, my spirit. So yes, it could include things like going for a massage, getting a pedicure, girlfriend time, all of those wonderful things that feel really nice. But self-care is also things like taking some time to breathe during my day, meditating, creative expression, saying no to things when I really want to say no, and saying yes when I really want to say yes. And I saw that response from a few people. I love that, because oftentimes we can feel like we have to say yes to everything. We get used to, even when we don't want to, doing obligations and saying yes to requests from people because we think we should. So self-care can look like time in nature, time alone when you need to recharge, especially if you're more on the introverted side of the spectrum. It's so many different things. And the cool thing about self-care too is that what is self-care to me may not always be the same as self-care to you. So, some of the things, the services, some people don't like massages, like they don't enjoy that. Some people don't like, or they don't feel great doing certain activities. Like, for me, I love playing music and I love dancing. And some people, that wouldn't be self-care because they don't enjoy that. They might find more enjoyment in, sporting activities or something like that. So self-care really, the ultimate thing is it's unique to you in that sense, but it's not things that have to take a lot of money that you necessarily have to spend hours and hours doing. So the saying of I don't have time, could you not find 5 minutes for yourself just to connect in? Like that's for me is very powerful. When I do that in the morning, I begin my day usually before I start working with a little bit of meditation time, and I see a huge difference in how I feel, how productive I am, how inspired I am just from that time. And I'm not an hour meditator by any means. Like sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's 15 minutes, even 5 minutes, like would be really tremendously beneficial if you're pressed for time, but you want to just start your day in a more connected place. So it can feel really easy to say, I'm too busy for that. Like there's too many demands between my work and my family and everybody needs me. But the truth is there's a lot of benefit to self-care. So I'm just going to share a little bit of, again, my personal experience. The days when I prioritize that above all else, like being really connected to myself, being connected to my body, making sure it has all it needs, taking time to tend to my mind through meditation, through EFT tapping, through a variety of different practices. And then when I also make time in my day, even if sometimes taking a little bit of a break for creativity. I'm lucky a lot of times I am home. I can pop out and just sit down and play the piano for a little bit. So the fascinating thing, and I know some of you may not work for yourself, and it may be harder to find those moments throughout the day. But the fascinating thing that I find in my own life is when I do prioritize those things, even if I'm working less hours, but I'm putting more time into those self-care time slots, things flow for me in a completely different way. I have more opportunities come my way, clients come my way, I feel better, I'm more inspired, content comes through me. So it can be really easy to get caught in those excuses of, I have to do things that are productive. Oh, that's another big one. Yeah, let's definitely address that. So, self-care for some of us may not be something that we think of as productive because it's not checking off a task on our to-do list. So if you relate to that, definitely see that as a theme for a lot of people. So if you are one of those people, yeah, it may not be checking off a box of, oh, I sent that email. Oh, I made that phone call. I did that task, check, done. But ultimately, for me and what I've witnessed for other people I know that really prioritize this is when we are in that space of prioritizing self-care, the other tasks get easier to do. We're more in flow. Just opportunities come our way. So it enhances your productivity in a lot of ways. So we need to just start to explore, what does self-care mean to you? Are you just viewing it as one particular thing? Like I have to go out and pay someone for a service. Can you broaden that definition a bit and find something else? Looking at what you enjoy, because again, we're not mapping this on to what works for me works for you. And self-care for me too includes I have a lot of tools in my toolkit. So when I'm feeling stressed out, when I'm feeling like my body is run down, I have different things that I can actually do, different techniques. And I love to teach people some of those things as well, because I think it's important that that's part of self-care too, is just finding ways to shift our bodies and our state and give our bodies resources. So what does self-care mean to you? What things really fill you up? What excuses might you be making around self-care and, around time? Everybody else, is more important. So that's definitely, you're giving yourself a message when you're saying, yes, there is a reality of if you have small children around and all of that, yes, you probably do have responsibilities and tend to them. But if you also are constantly telling yourself their needs are more important than my own, you're also kind of reflecting that then out and teaching that to them. So you're disempowering future generations because you're sending that message. And again, I'm not judging anyone through saying these things. I'm just bringing some stuff to awareness that are some pretty common patterns of saying, everybody else is more important than me. So wouldn't it serve your family and your loved ones if your cup was nice and full, to use that classic analogy of can't serve from an empty cup? If your cup is completely drained and you're trying to give to people, how much and what's the quality of what you can actually give? Would it serve your loved ones better if you were really well resourced, you felt amazing and supported in your own body, you've tended to that, and then you're coming from a place of serving from there? So just spend a little bit of time, reflecting about what are you telling yourself about self-care. I don't have time. Everybody else has, needs, and I can't make that time for myself. I can't make it a priority. Just examining all of these different things. And then ultimately it's about finding what works for you. So, it doesn't, again, have to be hours and hours. It can be just squeezing in 5 minutes. It can be starting your day, in bed with some intention, taking some nice deep breaths, thinking of things that you're grateful for so that you start the day in a grateful space, and then going about your day, maybe, a couple hours later, again, just taking a few deep breaths, connecting back in, asking yourself, what's one or two things that I can do for myself right now, even in the midst of all the other things that I need to do? What's one or two things that I can do? Maybe it's eating a healthier meal for your lunch rather than just grabbing something and eating it on the go or eating it at your desk. Your body, again, as I'm always saying, your body is talking to you. And if you get quiet and you start to just tune into what does my body need from me in this moment? That's a great way to practice self-care. It's just, what does my body need? We live in a world that's super overwhelming, that's busy and stressful. And ultimately, I think the core message that I want to share is that without self-care, if you're not tending to yourself, your health is going to suffer, and therefore everything in your life is going to suffer. So we only have so much energy. We only have so many resources that our body has. And if you're never taking downtime, you're never taking a rest, never getting out in nature, going for a walk, taking time to breathe, meditating, any of those things, your body is going to start to wear down and break down. And ultimately, again, that's not good for you. And it's also, if you're always driven by the impact that has on the people you care about, what's going to happen to the people in your life if you're breaking down. So I would love to hear if you watch this or you listen to this episode and you have a particular self-care that you love, feel free to share that with me. It's always great to have different ideas of what that is, because it does look so different to everybody. I hear some people say, I do a particular activity and I go, that wouldn't feel like self-care to me. And that's okay, because we are all unique. We're all different. And the more we can tune into what works for you, what resonates for you as a form of self-care, and make it doable, make it, little bite-sized chunks. If you do have a busy schedule, if you work a lot of hours, if you have family that you're always tending to, trying to just find 5 or 10 minutes to squeeze in here and there, that can even be the beginning of making a huge difference. And remembering that mindset piece too. If you're prioritizing everyone and everything else, you're sending yourself a message that you're not important. And you are important. You deserve to prioritize yourself, your health, your well-being. That is what your body needs to thrive. And ultimately that affects everyone around you as well. So thank you for taking the time to listen and to do some thinking about the area of self-care. I'm going to be coming out with some new offers around self-care because I think this is an important area. So there'll be maybe some classes and some different resources that will be coming out from me in the future. I'm just kind of in the creation phase of that and the brainstorming phase. And if you have something that speaks to you that you really, it's like, oh, if I could find somebody that would offer this for self-care, feel free to let me know what that is, because I'm definitely responsive to hearing what the desires are of people around support for that, whether it just be accountability, like making sure that you're doing your self-care like you say, or whether it be, I would really like to learn this particular thing as a self-care focus. So thank you again for listening, and I look forward to sharing with you more in our next episode.